All right, friends, welcome back to the Overshare Hour. How are you doing, Kens?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this episode. How about you?
Oh, so excited. We have been wanting to do this episode for a long time. So it is going to be an entire episode focused on your religious trauma submissions.
Yes.
And while this podcast is not solely religious trauma, if you are new here, I would say probably one every episode does definitely touch on deconstruction and religious trauma. But we thought, hey, let's go ahead and just do an entire themed episode around
Yeah.
this topic.
I mean, we have to.
We have to
It's
at
us.
this point. Yeah, and we have enough submissions to fill an episode. And unfortunately, we weren't able to even get to all of the ones.
hmm
I know I put it on my story and said, submit because we're going to have this episode. So if you do not hear it, that doesn't mean that we aren't going to answer it at some point.
Definitely.
All right, are you ready for the first one?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Okay. I grew up in a religious family and attended a church summer camp. I was emotionally attached to the camp's director and took her advice, both religious and personal. Many of these things traumatized me and were incredibly emotionally and mentally abusive. But they were followed up many times by how much she loved me and cared about me. Sometimes I want to confront her about how she has traumatized me, and other times I think that it would just be a bad idea. This happened between the ages of 11 and 20. I'm 27 now, and I'm just now realizing how damaging all of this was. I just want to be able to move on, but I feel like I'm stuck because I haven't been able to say how fucked up all of this was. What would you do?
This is a really good question. I think we've both run into this in different ways, and not just with one specific person, but lots of people that we felt like they contributed in some way to both like the really memorable or I guess important parts of our religious lives, and then also that has carried into our deconstruction and we've realized harm. And so backtracking and facing that later on can be difficult. I think one of the hardest things is, do I bring stuff up that happened a long time ago? Is it still relevant? Like, is it fair to bring things up that happened years ago? And I would say that we are absolutely entitled to our own healing, and it's absolutely fair for you to talk about the things that hurt you and to bring that to the people that played a part in that, no matter how much time has passed. I have experienced this with familial trauma, with religious trauma, where I really get stuck in my own healing, and I'm wondering, like, I still worry sometimes about things that I have recently brought up or kind of like shined a light on, and I will second guess myself sometimes and be like, was that wrong of me? Should I not have brought that up this late in life? You know, something that happened to me 20 years ago, right? But when your trauma lives in your body, it's relevant to you and you are entitled to that healing. And those people who were responsible for the part that they played, they should take ownership if they're capable and they're willing to do that. I think the hardest part is a lot of times, and I think you've experienced this, I've definitely experienced this, just because we bring it up and we're trying to heal doesn't mean that that person's going to respond the way that we want them to. And sometimes that can be really difficult to navigate. And so I would say if you feel like you can have these conversations regardless of the response and still feel like you got out of it what you needed to get out of it by doing your part, then you absolutely should. But it's not something you should go into without knowing and considering the fact that it might not be met with the resolution that you're hoping for. And it could, and that would be beautiful. I mean, we all hope for that people are able to take responsibility and that there can be, amending, and that part is really helpful in healing. But I would say that even us just being able to speak our truths, especially when we come from these organizations and to people who maybe perpetuated this way that we used to think about life, that we need to be silent and kind of just like listen and do as we were told, or stay quiet when we had issues and just pray and ask God to help you forgive, but never really confront. Like, that was kind of the world. And that seems to be a lot of what people experience. So it can be really hard to confront people who are part of that part of your life. But you deserve to speak your truth. You deserve to say it out loud. And a lot of times, just speaking it and just saying it and being able to feel that empowerment within yourself can be a really huge part of the healing process. So yes, I would say you should totally say how fucked up it all was. You should absolutely talk to the people who have harmed you. Maybe if you're feeling a lot of anger around it and you are wanting that, maybe that healthier conversation, then I would just think about ways that you can do it from a place of maybe just a place of calm. And I know it's like, this is so fucked up. I'm really hurt by this. And I have had times where I get really angry and I just say what's on my heart and it comes out messy. And I can't say that I regret that, but I do sometimes wish that I could go back and maybe like have my wits about me a little bit more, or like be standing on solid ground a little bit more. And so therapy can help with that. I've had my therapist walk with me through how I'm going to have conversations with people many times. And I will say, even in those conversations that I feel like I've planned out really well or thought through really well, they don't necessarily end with the exact type of resolution that I want, but I can walk away being like, I did that to the best of my ability. I said everything that I needed to say, and I didn't pop off, because I'm a big pop off girl. Like, I'll just get really mad and then I'll just pop off. So I feel better when I talk to my therapist, and then we can kind of like role play. I think we've talked about this actually in another episode, where like we will literally sit there and my therapist will be like, okay, imagine this happens. This is the response. What do you want to say if that happens? Because we get in these moments where we're so heated, and then you look back on it and you're like, I didn't even actually get to say the things that I really wanted to say. And then it almost feels like the conversation was wasted. So if you don't have a therapist and you just have a friend that you could talk to and like maybe walk through that with you, I would say practicing. I know that sounds so weird, but it's really been helpful for me to practice having those conversations before I have them, or writing a letter. You don't always have to have the conversation face to face, but you're totally well within your rights to have that closure just for your own sake. What would you say?
No, yeah, that's really good advice. I think it really depends on who you are, what's important to you, and I think your goal in it. So, back to your first question saying, is it unfair to bring it up after this much time? I think it doesn't matter how much time has passed. It's fine to talk about it. You lived this with this person for years. It sounds like they were a huge part of your life. So, this is not really out of nowhere or anything like that. So, I think that it's valid to bring it up at any point if it feels unresolved to you. The the only thing I would say, like, the other side is I liked what you were saying, Ken's, about being okay with whatever reaction
Yeah.
they might have, because there is no guarantee that this person is going to take responsibility, feel sorry at all. They might look at you and be like, wow, you're so backslidden and you've just
Mhm.
let the devil's anger take a hold of you. Like, there's so many ways that this could go that are not positive. And I only say that because it sounds like this person was really horrible. I mean, you're saying, yes, there were kind moments, but also mentally and emotionally abusive. So those tactics might be used against you again. And
Mhm.
you would need to ask yourself, and maybe in therapy, ask if you feel like that would be beneficial for you. Because, like Ken's was saying, it might be beneficial for you to feel like I'm using my voice, I'm saying that this was fucked up and this was not okay. And that's really powerful for me. For me, personally, I had that horrible leader out at Bethel. I think I call her Alyssa. That's not her name, but she was awful. She accused me of being manipulative when I cried and told her that I felt like I wanted to kill myself when I had a one night stand. And she was just like, I don't feel bad for you at all. She was horrible to me. I was 19 years old and just had so much guilt and shame. And yeah, totally. Still, I'm like, wow, that was horrible. I look
Yeah.
back on that and it still upsets me for younger Juby that I went through that and that a grown adult treated me with such disdain
Uh,
during that time. Does any part of me want to talk to Alyssa and tell her, hey, you hurt me, that was messed up? Not for me personally.
yeah.
Like, no part of me would like to do that, because I know that I would just be met with manipulation or like the same whatever. And also, even if there was a different reaction, I don't know that it would make me feel any better
Mhm.
or anything. I just don't think that there's anything from that interaction that I would get that I
Right.
really need at this point in my life. I think that my way of healing, at least in regards to that person and a lot of Bethel people, has been sharing my story online. So I have found my voice without having to directly confront the person that hurt me. But it also has been very therapeutic. There have been times where I have written out 5-page letters and sent it to my ex-maid of honor, sent it to other family members, and wrote out everything that was harmful to me. And that was powerful for me because I
Mhm.
felt like I did need to do that in that specific circumstance. So
Yeah.
I think it depends. You need to ask yourself, is it that I'm wanting to build a bridge and try to rebuild with her? Is it that I'm just wanting her to know how horrible she is? And are you okay with whatever she could potentially say back? So I think bare minimum, what I would do is, if you don't feel like you want to speak to her, write out a letter that
Mhm.
is just so honest. And
Yep.
that's what I did with my maid of honor. The letter that I ended up sending her was edited. The original one I wrote the day before my birthday just to get my thoughts out, and I never meant to send it. It was just I'm going to say every single thing that's on my mind, every single thing that has hurt me. And then I realized, hey, maybe I should send this to her. And I actually went and edited it. But it's therapeutic just to write it.
Yeah.
So I would say bare minimum, do that. But yes, you are entitled to share your feelings. And yeah, you absolutely have a right to do that. I would just try to ask yourself, if you feel like with this specific person, do you feel like that would be beneficial to you or harmful to you? And I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer. It just depends on the situation and, what you're hoping to get.
Absolutely. 100% yes. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, let
Yeah.
us know what you do. I think we all have probably those one or two or seven people who have made us feel some type of way being raised in these religious systems,
Yes.
and it's very relatable for sure.
Yeah, it is. Definitely let us know. Okay. You ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay. It says, Hi. So I was born into a Christian household and have been labeling myself as Christian until recently when I started questioning everything and saw your videos and other people posting about controversial things in the Bible, like, is the story of Adam and Eve real or fiction? Is the Bible today actually true? And if so, why are there so many things that are controversial and that go against one another in the Bible? Were there passages in the Bible taken out or misinterpreted / mistranslated, etc.? And it's really helped me to find the courage to question what was forced upon me because I was told at a young age that if I didn't put my faith and trust in Jesus, I would spend a lost eternity burning in hell. But I don't know where to find the help or information I need to truly start deconstructing my previous beliefs that I've been raised in all my life and not having any other choice but to obey and have faith. I also can't tell anyone in my family that I've made the decision to no longer be a Christian and start living my life without this constant fear and this idea of perfectionism and the idea of how we are born into this world sinners because of the sins of two people who had no idea what sin was, which just doesn't make sense to me. But I feel I can't tell them because if I did, they would honestly have a heart attack. And after they finished yelling at me that I shouldn't listen to things I hear online because it's all lies sent by the devil himself, pretty much. So it's just hard as a 16-year-old girl who is finding all of this out on my own and doesn't know really what to do and still gets slight doubts if I'm doing the right thing or not, even though I know that I am. But it's just hard when there's no one there to support me because they will think that something's wrong with me if I tell them.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, I really relate to that. At the age of 31, I relate to that. So
Yeah.
the fact that you're going through this at the age of 6, which adds another layer when you were in the household of people who are, above you, your parents, and, they are wanting to raise you up to be a certain way. So when you are feeling like you are questioning all of these things, that is overwhelming, to say the least, to know exactly what to do. Gosh, there's so much in here. I don't even know where to start. One core belief that I've had that has helped me as I've navigated deconstruction is the idea that God isn't afraid of questions. So if I am having all of these questions and this is all true, then they will stand up to the test of me looking into it more. Because I think that there is this belief that we should just blindly trust that
Mhm.
the Bible is inherently perfect and that you just shouldn't do any research. You should not, quote unquote, lean on your own understanding, which in a lot of Christians' minds, that means not really looking into it, not doubting, not questioning. And I just don't believe that to be true. I think that if it's all true, then it will stand up to some scrutiny and some digging into it, and that there would be nothing to be afraid of if that was the case. So that's one thing that really helped me get started, because I'm going to be so honest that I remember in around 2018, 2019, when I was still married to my ex, every time I picked up the Bible, I would read for maybe 5 minutes and I would find something in there that upset me. Um, and there would be this thing in my gut where I would think, I don't really like how that played out. I don't really understand this story. Or the Tower of Babel, that sounds like Greek mythology, to explain why we don't all speak the same language, and I would get so anxious just even reading the Bible that I didn't read the Bible, but like fully was like, I'm just not going to question. I'm not going to lean on my own understanding. And up until this year, I just didn't even let myself think anything. So when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to look into this, I don't share my beliefs publicly on TikTok or this podcast. But since you're asking, where can you start to try to get the truth? Because I never shared this because I don't want to make it sound like I have beef with this creator, because I actually don't even remember who she is. She just came across my For You page and she was talking about the history of the Bible. And I said, where would you look if you wanted to know the truth? Like, what do you recommend if you want to know the truth? And she just responded, what do you mean the truth? And that kind of irritated me, because I was like, you've obviously done research into the history of the Bible. I'm asking you specifically for resources. So the reason why I brought that up is I will tell you exactly what I think is a good resource, which is you can get it on Libby, and it's an audio series of seminars from Bart Ehrman. I think that's how you say his name. And it is called The History of the Bible, the Making of the New Testament Canon. So if you're wanting to know, where did we get the scriptures from? How were they passed down? And it's solely just looking at it from time period type of lens. It's not trying to make any sort of announcement on faith. If you're really wanting to look into that, that is a good resource that I found. There's also a good amount of YouTube videos. I would look up the history of hell. You can find so many videos. I think that there's one by, I think it was like Sunday Brunch, or it was something breakfast. I forgot what it was called. You'd probably recognize it if you type it in. Just history of hell. I think it was a 7-minute video, and it broke it down for me in a very easy way to understand. And I think that once I was able to just deconstruct hell, then I can look at everything else. I can look at the person of Jesus, God's love, the start of the world, and really start to think about that without fear, because the fear of hell is overwhelming. As far as your family, I felt this so deeply when you said, I'm afraid to tell them because I honestly think they'd have a heart attack. We knew someone once who had told us, I'm not going to live a certain life until my parents die, because it was the same idea of, I am just afraid that they would not be okay, that their health would not be okay. I think that this is a personal choice for you, whether or not you want to share. If you feel like you need to share where you're at in your process, then more power to you. Personally, for me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Kens, but personally for me, I feel like faith is so personal, and I don't think you owe anybody exactly what you believe, because you might believe something 5 years from now that's different. And, you might deconstruct and then you might reconstruct, or you might deconstruct and just not. And you feel so at peace and so happy with that. I mean, it's hard to know where you are going to end up. And I don't think that you necessarily owe anybody the details of that journey. So since you're 16 and you're kind of under their wing, personally, if it were me, I just wouldn't share it. I would keep it to myself, but I would still continue to look into it more. I would follow creators who seem that they have gone on a similar path and just really do all of that internal work. But more power to you if you feel like you want to tell them. I think that that is completely up to you. But what do you think, Ken's, about the whole thing?
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, I wanted to say that Libby, if you do not know what that is, it's the app that you can download onto your phone and it links to a library card. So if you can go get a library card, you have to have a physical library card, right? And then you plug in the number. Okay, so
Yes.
you go get a library card from your local library and then you can download the whatever like audiobooks, you can even read them on there as well, almost like Kindle style or whatever. But you can download audiobooks from there. So it's just an app called Libby, Libby. So definitely, I would say, just if you didn't know. And then the family thing. So what you said was, but I feel I can't tell them because if I did, they would honestly have a heart attack after they finish yelling at me and saying that I shouldn't listen to these things that you hear online. So it sounds to me like you have parents who are very convicted in their beliefs and that it wouldn't be a type, or it maybe isn't the type of relationship where you could have like an honest conversation about this without it getting heated or emotionally charged. And if that's the case, I totally agree. I agree with you, GB, that it's really hard. I think like if I'm trying to think of myself, I'm 32 now. I'm trying to think of myself at 16. My beliefs were so wrapped up in the beliefs of other people at that point because, and I'm still dealing with that to this day, but I'm just saying when you're 16, you live with your parents, you're very involved in the faith that they are a part of, church, youth group, whatever it may be, it feels like you want to bring them into everything that you think because you've never not thought outside of them. At least that was my experience. I didn't have a lot of independent thought about what I believed. Everything was kind of just mimicked from what was being told to me. And I just took that all at face value, especially in middle school and high school. That having my own faith journey and not sharing that felt like sin to me. It felt like I was doing something wrong against my parents or doing something wrong against my leadership. I felt like I had to confess it because that was so ingrained in me. And I don't know, to the person who's writing this in, if you're necessarily in that place. I'm just speaking personally. That's how I felt, that if I were to have a thought or a question or a doubt, it felt like I needed to share that because I needed guidance. Like I needed someone to guide me in that. And so it took me a long time to come to the place that you're talking about, Juby, where I felt like my beliefs were my own, because up until recently, my beliefs were just as much everybody else's business as they were mine, because that's what I was taught. I was taught, and we were all taught, that not only are they the business of our parents and of our leadership, but we're also supposed to confess to our peers every sin, every thought, everything we're going through. I mean, that's what small groups about, doing life together. And it's just to make sure that we are kept in check and that we don't fall prey to the enemy, right? And so if there is any bit of you that's feeling that way, then it might feel like very new information, that your beliefs are solely your own and that you are entitled to them and you're entitled to privacy. Like all of that, if I was hearing that at 16, would have felt taboo, freeing, super freeing, and also taboo and scary. And I think that we can't offer you any sort of feeling as much as we can just the knowing from where we are at this vantage point, having come from the same religious background that you're talking of, that we both have come to this place recently, like in my late 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s, like in the last few years, of being like, wait, I don't have to tell people every thought that I think or every belief that I have. I get to trust myself. I get to have a personal faith journey. I get to have my own relationship with God. And I get to trust that, like you were saying, which is beautiful advice or just a beautiful thought, that people are so scared of deconstruction. But if there was nothing to be afraid of, or if there was nothing wrong or nothing that we had needed to question, then we shouldn't be afraid. I totally agree with you that God is not afraid of our questions. And we can trust that as we have a relationship with God or whatever is unfolding before us, that we can find out what is true for us. And it's also very real that could change every 6 months. It could change every few weeks. It could change every few years. And that just isn't a mindset that a lot of Christian evangelicals have, because it's just not part of that faith system at this point. So I would say that if you are afraid that if you have this conversation, it could cause, chaos in your home life, that it could cause you a lot of trauma, or it could make things really difficult for you. Think about those things, because whether you've ever heard it before or this is the first time you're hearing it, it is true that your beliefs are your own and you don't owe that to anybody, and you are still on your journey. You're still figuring it out, and that's okay for you to do that. It almost is like you feel like you're going against your parents and you're betraying their parental role in your life by keeping things from them, like it's a secret. But that's where I would say having your own faith journey is not the same thing as sneaking out in the middle of the night and taking their car. And that's
Yeah, it's not
where,
the same thing, but it
yes,
feels like it is.
exactly. And that's what
Mhm.
I was thinking, is that when we are talking about faith, it's almost like we're saying, sure, like go to the bar and get drunk with your friends, like do whatever you want. There is a place for like respect for your parents. And I think that's where it gets muddy with faith, is that we feel like, well, we have to have the same faith that our parents do in order to honor them and respect them. And faith is just very, very different when it comes to what you believe about God is different. You can honor your parents and love them and have your own faith journey, and those two things can exist at the same time. So if you feel in your body like, oh my gosh, I may not be a Christian anymore, that's the same thing as stealing money from my mom's purse and going shopping at the mall in her car. That's not the same thing, even if it feels that way, because I know it would have felt that way for me. I know it did feel that way, even when I did it as an adult. So you are entitled to this. If you feel like it's going to cause chaos, you do not have to say anything. And then maybe as you go down this journey, opportunities will present itself where you can have the conversation in a different way, where it doesn't end in, the screaming or the heart attack. It's really, really, really difficult. And I'm very sorry that you're feeling the pressure of this, but you don't have to share if it doesn't feel like the safest option.
Yeah, and you are not alone. I mean,
Uh-uh.
oh gosh, like everybody who follows us, pretty much, not everybody, okay, but a fair amount. We've all walked journeys
Yeah.
similar of being afraid of like disappointing our friends, and
Hmm.
it's a lot, and I think that really plugging into community online, I know it's like they're like, oh, the people online are changing your mind, but it does help to feel like you're not alone. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a very common experience to be deconstructing, or even just to allow yourself to ask questions. It's a part of growing up,
Hmm.
and hey, I didn't start allowing myself to ask questions until I was 24.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
You're ahead of the game.
you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. I've had friends who have had experiences talking to their parents, and it's gone differently for lots of people. I know someone who was questioning their faith at a very young age, and their parents were very open to the conversation and very, they obviously had their beliefs and they wanted to guide them, back into Christianity, but there was openness, right? And then you have people who they share that and they get kicked out of the house. And so you have to assess the risk for you
Yes.
in talking about this, and make peace with yourself and knowing you're 16, you have a few more couple years, 2, 3 more years probably in school at least. And it's okay to protect yourself if you feel like it might take a more chaotic or scary turn.
Financial turn.
Yeah, that as well. And it's okay to think about yourself in that way. And there might come a time, again, like I said, that this conversation might be easier to have, potentially. At least
Yeah.
maybe not for them, but for you, even.
Yeah. Once
Yeah.
the power imbalance isn't so swayed one
Hmm.
way, I think.
Yeah.
All right, Kenzie, are you ready for the next one?
I'm going to take a sip of my diet Pepsi, and
Yes,
then
you
I'll be
are.
ready. We're not drinking alcohol tonight, you guys.
No, I was like, clear mind. No. Typically, okay, so if you are new to the show, we have submissions of every type. So sometimes they're like really juicy and tea worthy.
It's
And
fun.
it's fun because we have drinks sometimes. And then we always have like 1 to 2 that are a bit more serious and heartfelt.
Hmm.
So yeah, drinks are fun with that. We have our little wine nights while we read your submissions, but today we are fully mentally here for you. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I grew up in a megachurch and experienced a lot of trauma there. I am now free and healing as an agnostic. One of the most frustrating responses from Christians when I share this is, well, the church is made up of people and people aren't perfect. Don't let that be the reason that you stop believing in Jesus. Have you gotten these reactions? And if so, how do you respond? Thank you all for all that you do and share.
Have I gotten that reaction?
Never.
That is the main reaction. I would say that is like the number one reaction. It's just perfect deflection. They don't have to take, they don't have to let anybody take responsibility for any harm that's done within the church if you just say people aren't perfect, but God is. So I just, I don't respond. I understand, like, what do you say to these people? I don't say to those people. And so maybe Jubilee will have some better actual advice when it comes to how you respond to these people. But I get it so often. And not just, I get it in my comment section all the time. So we can just say, like, the amount of people who send that exact line, like you just copy and pasted from my comment section on my videos on social media. But I also have gotten many very detailed, long emails, DMs, text messages from people from the church, like that I grew up with, people that I know personally, family members, who are basically like, the way that they spin it seems to be like, I know you've gone through a lot, but most people just heal and move on with their lives. Why do you have to dwell? People are not perfect, but God is, and you're hurting God by leading people away from the church. I don't respond because I think that if people are believing and thinking that way, then you're wasting more breath to have the argument, because I don't think those people are ready to hear. I think they're defending people that have caused you trauma or a system that's caused you trauma, then there's something within themselves they're not willing to or ready to face that. So I don't think it's important to have the conversation with them. But for myself, how I've dealt with, people are imperfect, so we can't hold them accountable, or the system that protects them accountable, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's no other area or situation in life where we think like that we don't think that it's important to hold people accountable for their actions, except for when they're done against women. But we're not going to get into that conversation. But I'm just saying we have a justice system. Like, these people who are saying this about the church also believe that murderers should go to prison. And so it's just mental gymnastics that people do in order to feel safe within their faith, I think. And you have to release yourself from the frustration of that, because it's so unbelievably frustrating and you can't really ever have a conversation. I've never had one that, like, I stopped having it because I realized no one's ever going to hear what I'm trying to say. So at the end of the day, we know that it does not make sense to let the actions that are horrible, traumatic, abusive actions of people slide and not hold those systems that protect them accountable, because God didn't do it to you. No one's saying God did these things to us. We're saying that this system and the people within it have patterns of abuse that are extremely harmful and have caused a lot of trauma. And it is very important to expose that so that hopefully it happens less. Because if people know it's happening and we keep talking about it, then hopefully over time it will happen less. So yeah, I don't respond. I don't respond to them, and I get it all the time. Do you respond?
Not on social media. So
Okay.
straight up, I get 2 to 3 of these DMs on social media every single day.
Yeah.
And I think I do want to point out that yes, it's very frustrating. 100%. It is valid to be frustrated by these comments, and I think that those comments come from 2 different types of people, at
Mm.
least. There are the people kind of like what you were talking about, Ken's, where they're like, you should be over this by now. People just heal and get over it. Why are you like this? There are people like that who are not as well-meaning. And then I truly do believe that a fair amount of people who are in my DMs are very nice, because they'll send me really heartfelt stuff. They'll say, I listened to your story and it's so sad what happened and how the church failed you. And I really hope that this hasn't changed how you feel about God. I get
Mm.
that all of the time, and I know it's well-meaning. So those actually don't frustrate me that much. I see
Yeah.
see where they're coming from. But yeah, I typically don't respond just because, well, one, I don't share my beliefs publicly, so I don't know how to respond to that without, I don't know,
Getting into that conversation.
yeah, and giving people a level of intimacy to me where I don't even know these people. Like,
Yeah.
kind of going back to what we were saying, do we owe people our personal beliefs? Do I owe
Yeah.
this random person who DM'd me
Yeah.
my personal theology? But um, yeah, it is very frustrating. And I think it's often a cop out and a
Mm.
deflection because they don't want to think about the fact that it could be happening in their church. I've also gotten a lot of comments
Yeah.
of, well, my church was so great. And, not, maybe there's a chance that that's true. I do think that there are some healthier churches out there than some of the more unhealthy ones. Like my grandma's church, they were all 70 plus years old.
Yes.
And I'm sure that church was pretty healthy. And we had our luncheons and it was adorable. And
Yes.
I can't say that church was doing like a bunch of harm or anything like that. And I do think that there's beauty in community, so I
Mhm.
can acknowledge that as well. But also, you wouldn't know if there's something going on because things get covered up. So you could truly think that your church is perfect
Amazing.
and there could be so much going on behind the scenes that's been buried that you would know nothing about that. And yeah, I think that what I appreciate the most is when people write me and they tell me, I'm a Christian and I love what you do,
Yeah.
and I think that those people are the most well-meaning. Those are the people
Uh,
who they understand that there's value in talking about religious trauma because it is so prevalent and there are so much harm going on in the church. Yeah, but I don't really respond to those, I will say. And if I were to respond just here real quick, is that my beliefs, and I've said this before, but my beliefs have never changed based on what anything I've been through, to be
nope.
honest, like at all. After I got divorced from Ted and everything with the false prophet and everything with Bethel, my beliefs didn't change at all.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing that started my deconstruction was actually doctrine. Like
Uh,
reading the Bible is the only thing that ever affected me. It wasn't my religious trauma. And that's not to say I'm better than somebody who's been harmed by the church and left for that reason.
yes.
Totally, I hear you.
Oh yeah.
You
Valid.
know, I'm not saying it's invalid to leave the
Mhm.
church based off of religious trauma. I'm just saying for me personally, if I were to answer that question, it would be the people had nothing to do with me looking more into my beliefs and allowing myself the space to question. But yes, we have gotten that hundreds of times. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, we've gotten it a lot. And I think I would only have that conversation with somebody who I think deserves access to me. So
Yeah.
somebody who is close to me and who is respectful, I think I would have that conversation and tell them the truth and we would talk it out. But as far as just people who probably aren't asking to listen, they're not
Right.
asking you because they really want to know where you're at. They're
Mhm.
trying to, it probably makes them feel better. It's like a band aid. I just want to
Yeah.
say, as a Christian, I hope you haven't let
Yeah.
this, make you stray from the church. So,
I think it can be really hard too because I've gotten this so many times when it's really an assumption because I talk a lot about religious trauma and the harmful experiences that I've had without talking about where I'm at with my faith. And I think that the assumption that because you're deconstructing or you're talking about harm done means automatically that you've left the church can be frustrating. And I think that's where I would say to someone, like you were saying, if they were close to me, I would say maybe the first question isn't have you left the church or are you not a Christian anymore? And I'm not saying that I think you're right. There are some people who are well meaning and they ask it. I just don't think that that's the appropriate first question when you're met with
yeah.
someone's real trauma. I don't think that that's because everyone's being necessarily malicious, but I think that the people who say like, "Hey, I hear you and thank you for sharing this and also I'm a Christian," I think that they're maybe like on the right track in terms of like how to start a conversation with someone if they're really truly wanting to know how it's impacted your faith, like what you've experienced in the church. The first thing would be to make those people feel seen and understood, and to really listen and hear them and want to know more, and educate your own self on what's happening in, certain churches if you don't know, or in the under the umbrella of the religion that you subscribe to. Because if the first thing is, oh, well, you better not have left because that's not God doing that to you, then there's really not a lot of empathy or compassion underneath that question. And I think that's why I feel like it's not worth to have the conversation. But I would say that people who do respond, who are Christian and they want to know more, I'm way more open to having that conversation. And if that person were to then eventually ask me, where are you with your faith? I wouldn't feel any type of way answering
Mm-hmm.
that.
No, yeah,
So,
that's good.
yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to our next one. Are you ready? This one's really for you, Juby. I will chime in, but this one's for you.
I wish
says-
I knew how to answer it. Okay, let's go.
It says, I have some friends that are still drinking the Bethel Kool-Aid. How can I break their fantasy?
Well, let me give you a step-by-step guide. No. When I saw this one, I was like, okay, we have to do it because this is one of, and I apologize for anybody who's DM'd me. I wish I had the time to, I do try to respond to as many as possible, but I don't always get to all of them. But I get this question a lot from people saying that they have a mom who is attending Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, or their parents moved out there a few years ago, or their sister's really excited and their sister won't listen. And how do you help me stop my sister going in 2 weeks? And it's, how do you get somebody to stop drinking the Kool-Aid? I wish I knew, guys. I really wish I knew. I think that planting seeds, okay, maybe that's a good one. Planting seeds, maybe just raising awareness. So I would possibly tell them, have you seen that there are some videos on YouTube about this church? Have you seen some of the things that are coming out? I would point them towards their cover up of the Sean Bowles situation, and just, some of their big scandals that they've had, because they've had a few off ones, and see if they will listen, because there also are other YouTubers. I personally don't agree with these YouTubers on everything, but if I'm trying to get to the Bethel Kool-Aid people, there's some good YouTubers who unpack Bethel's doctrine. So one of them is Faith Reframed. He's very nice. I've talked to him. We don't agree on very much, but he's nice. His name's Jesse Westwood. And he's an ex-Bethel student, and he deconstructed and then reconstructed. And he talks a lot about how Bethel's beliefs are not biblical. So I would point them to them. The Minor Prophets, they're another podcast of ex-Bethel people who have talked about some of the harmful things that Bethel has done. I would point them to Mike Winger because he has talked about that. And then there's also, what is it? Faith Over Fear? Maybe that's what it's called. But there's another very popular one that often makes videos about Bethel. And let me just say, guys, I do not agree with a lot of these people on their politics and their content. But if you're trying to reach somebody who is drinking the Bethel Kool-Aid, these are some very Christian content creators who are raising alarms about Bethel, and that could potentially help them get in a healthier place. So for me, I know when I was driving out to Bethel, I've told this story a couple times, but somebody sent out this mass email the week that I was showing up that said, hey, we think that Bethel might be a cult. And did you know about this, Kenzie?
No.
Story time. So here we go. I'll make it short, but I was driving to Bethel. I get this email, and it's because BSSM had given all of the students each other's email addresses. That way we could try to find roommates. So they had given us everybody's email address. That way we could try to find roommates before the school year started. So these two guys showed up to Bethel a little bit early, started to attend some of their seminars and their classes. And in one of those, somebody was talking about the third heaven and some other like really mystically type of stuff. And when they went to those leaders to try to say like, hey, where is this in the Bible? And that one thing you said, where is that in the Bible? This leader had told them, well, we all believe kind of different things here, and each leader might have a different take on certain stuff. So they were very deflecting on it.
Uh-huh.
And these guys just were like, red flags, red flags. We feel like they're teaching false words here, and we think that this might be a cult. So they sent out this mass email that was really well written. And it scared me so bad because here I am arriving to Reading. I get this email and I'm like, am I joining a cult right
How did
now?
I not know this?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, am I joining a cult? And yeah, I was. And
I, in fact, did.
and well, I had already found an apartment. I had already
Yeah.
paid the tuition. So I was like, let's cross our fingers and hope not. So I think for me, once I started to unpack Bethel a little
Mhm.
bit, I remembered that. And it was a little
Yeah.
seed that had been planted. So what I will say is, as much as we want to pluck people
Mhm.
out of their belief systems and people who are totally drinking the Bethel Kool-Aid, you can only plant seeds. You can only get them to try to be curious about what some of these YouTubers are saying from a biblical basis, and also, yeah, just point out what you see, but say it in not a judgmental way. Just say,
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned, but I will tell you that there's a chance that it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I think that if somebody had talked to me, unfortunately, as is a lot of high control religion and culty spaces, they constantly tell you the outside world is not going to understand.
Yep.
The outside world is going to think you're crazy. The
Yep.
outside world, their eyes are not open and they're not getting the fullness of God. Here we have the truth. So they believe that they have the full truth. So to have
Yep.
somebody from the outside saying that they're concerned about you, I mean,
Almost
I
means
would have
nothing.
I would have written that off so quickly. So
Yes.
I think it's just this very, very hard thing of try to plant a couple seeds, but also don't be judgmental. That way they don't stop talking to you
Yeah.
and you don't get put in this little sector of enemy, unfortunately. And I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't know that there's really any perfect advice for trying to help people who are drinking the Kool-Aid at Bethel.
Yeah. I can't speak about Bethel because I didn't go there, but
But I
I
have.
went to IHOP, the International House of Prayer, which is another cult. And I yeah, I would say you can't break someone's fantasy, especially when they're, like you were saying, being told constantly that people are going to try to break their fantasy. Like they literally are telling you this is going to happen. People are going to tell you that you're crazy. People are going to be worried for you. Your parents are going to be worried for you. They're not going to understand. And, I mean, they'll literally say, like, your parents are going, they might come to you and say that you shouldn't do this. Well, don't listen to them, listen to us. And I
God's
experienced
way
that.
is not their way.
Exactly. And I experienced that with my mom, but I didn't trust her at all. It made me mad. She would send me articles of people saying that IHOP was a cult, and I would just totally dismiss everything that she said. Now I'm like, oh my God, she was right all along. But
Okay, mom.
at the time, yeah, I mean, she'd call me crying. And I think that pushed me away from her, like I just didn't want to talk to her because, like you're saying, you don't want to be put in this like bubble of enemy, right? And not that she became my enemy, but she just was someone that I really couldn't talk to because I was like, she doesn't get it. But I will say that seeing things online, so these seeds that you're talking about, I ended up seeing a video that I like stumbled upon on my own of someone talking about IHOP being a cult. It was a girl who was part of one of their ministry schools, and she left and she put out some YouTube videos about her experiences, and I did watch those, and it it didn't make me believe her in the moment, but I will say that it got to me a little bit. It was enough. I listened and I watched intently, and I didn't feel defensive the whole time the way I did with my mom. Probably just because of the relationship. Like I didn't know this random person, and she went to IHOP and she left IHOP. And so I was like, wow, that's actually crazy. And I remember, I think I shared it with my dad and was kind of like, what do you think about this? And he was like, well, I mean, there's always going to be someone who like has a bad experience. It's like a bad review. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You know, someone's going to go to a restaurant and love it. And someone's going to go to a restaurant and tell everyone there
Yeah.
was cockroaches in their food. Like that's kind of how I viewed it until I deconstructed myself. The one person that I had in my life was a friend of mine. We were very, very good friends in high school and continued our friendship after. And she was a lesbian and we were so different at the time. You know, I was like, how are we even still friends? You know, like she came out to me, and for everyone who doesn't know, I'm queer, but she came out to me and it like affected our friendship, and I told her how much of a sinner she was, and she still stayed friends with me. Like throughout all of this, she stayed friends with me. And we got to have our conversation where I apologized and took ownership for how much I hurt her, but
Yeah.
she stayed the course in our friendship. And I will remember I was back from IHOP, not permanently, like visiting home. And I think, no, actually, this was after IHOP, but this was when I was about to go into One Voice Student Missions, which was I left IHOP and then I joined another missions organization that was also culty. But it was before I went, and I was still kind of deconstructing, like, I'm not deconstructing. I was still kind of like in the middle of not really knowing what I felt, but I was still heavy into my beliefs. And I was dealing with a lot of postpartum depression. I was really struggling with postpartum depression, but still very much drinking the Kool-Aid of my faith in a lot of ways. And she was like, have you ever considered depression medication? You're really struggling. Have you considered that? And I was like, oh, I'm not allowed to take that. And she was like, what do you mean you're not allowed to take that? And I was like, no, that's just like, we don't do that. Like, I can't take medicine for my mental health. Like, I have to work through it on my own. And really, what I was saying is like, I need to pray harder and God needs to heal me. Right.
Yeah.
And she straight up looked at me and she was like, you're in a cult. Like, she said that she was like, Kins, you're in a cult, call your dad, which was the tagline for like one of those podcasts. I don't even know what it is, but it was one she was really into. And I laughed, and it wasn't like it, for some reason it didn't hit me as judgment. She was just like, you absolutely, like, God would want you to take medicine just the same way that he would want you to take medicine if you were physically ill. Like, you are totally okay and you could still be a Christian and take medicine. And I didn't, you know, I didn't do that. But I thought about all these moments just the same way you did after, when I kind of came out of it on my own and made my own decision, and I broke the fantasy for myself, or the trauma that I experienced broke the fantasy, whatever, the veiled tour. And I was like, oh, all of those moments mean something to me now, but no one could have ever changed my mind in the moment. I had to do that for myself. And it's hard to let people go in that sense. But you're right, Juby, that if you want to stay close to them, if you can stomach it, because I look at my friend and I'm like, how did you stomach me? How did you stay close to me when I was living my life that way? And she did, you know, she was able to stay friends. We had a great friendship. And I know that can be really difficult, but you kind of have to let people walk their own path, and hopefully they'll
So
find
hard.
their way,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Yep.
Goodness. Yeah,
Yep.
we've all been there though. I mean, I still have friends, not close friends, but I still know
Hmm.
people who enjoy Bethel. And
Oh, yeah.
it's crazy. I'm like, wow, y'all must hate what I post online. Okay.
Oh, I get messages from people from the cult that I was in. I get messages from people that I were in my mentorship program trying to bring me back,
Yeah,
like
I
that I
believe it.
mentored. And this is just an aside, but so much so that I've seen people make stitched videos of my videos, like Christians who disagree with me make stitched videos of my videos. And then people who I mentored in the mentorship program and the cult that I was a part of commenting on their videos about how lost I am and how they're trying their best to bring me back.
I'm trying.
We're trying to
No,
reach
that's
her.
so real.
Yeah,
That's so, so real.
it's hard
Well, we feel you on that one
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yup.
Okay, so what we typically do at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the episode, so we typically do this thing called our overshare moment. So we jump into what's going on in our lives, what's top of mind. But we thought for the religious trauma section, we can read a few religious trauma comments like I do on social media, and we can just talk about them a little bit for
Yeah.
a little bit of fun slash healing sad, dark humor, laughter.
Yeah. Instead of our overshare moment, this is our trauma dump moment. Let's go.
Love it. All right, are you ready, Kens, for some insanity?
Yeah. Make me
Okay.
crazy.
All right. When I was a teen, the church taught that there was no reason for a woman to go to the OBGYN if she wasn't a loose woman. I feel like I got, I don't know, like this was peppered in there. Nobody ever said this so bluntly, but I do
Yeah.
feel like it was, you don't go to the OBGYN unless you're pregnant. Like, right? Why would you need to go? Nothing's going on down there, okay?
Yeah, right. Because the only thing that happens down there is related to sex. Absolutely.
Have you heard? I've read this before. People have said that their moms were so mad at them when they got a pap smear because their
Because
mom
they
said,
thought that it took away their
yeah,
virginity?
it took away their virginity.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so thankful my mom was never like that.
Yeah.
Never like that, because that's insanity. So I read stuff
Yeah.
like that and I'm like, no, my family, we had sense. Oh my gosh, what are you? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I can honestly say that I didn't experience that. Like
Yeah.
to that, I never experienced that. No.
There
That's
are
absolutely
certainly
insane.
levels to
Yeah.
to the insanity. Okay, this one pissed me off. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
I tried a new church once, and the sermon was about a teen in the youth group. They said that she was terminal because she didn't bargain successfully with God. If she offered the right thing, then she would live.
Wait, what? Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
your entire sermon being about a human person that is a part of your congregation
Yeah.
is ludicrous. I've never. And
I've heard of
bargain with
that.
God? What are we bargaining?
Well, obviously,
What are the chips?
I guess they're saying that if she just said the right prayer or gave up reality TV, she'd be
Yeah,
healed.
that's
Is
what I'm
that what
thinking.
they're
I'm like,
saying?
okay, so
Yeah,
she's eating too much chocolate on Saturday nights. Like, what is it? That is
probably.
absolutely insane.
The victim blaming is insane. Okay, crazy story is that when I left TED, I was trying to find a church here in town. I was trying to rebuild my life as a divorced woman. And here I am trying to convince my sisters to go to church with me. And I was like, don't worry, guys. It's not like a normal church. It's a cool church.
I've been
Because
there. I can attest to
wait,
the
we
church.
went.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we went
I
together.
attended their
Yeah, so we're talking like fog lights and blue lighting. It was totally a concert. Took Bran there at one point, and it was crazy because he grew up Catholic. He was like, "What are you
What is
guys
this?
doing?"
The pastor was definitely the kind that was like, stand up. This is my hot wife.
Oh, 100%. I actually feel like he might have. He might
No,
have
I
been
think
one
he
of the
did do
times.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, and one time he gave an entire sermon on how the entire congregation needed to go on a diet because we should be the most physically healthy people because we
Wait,
have God's holiness.
I
I should tell
missed
that
that.
story sometime. Yeah, so that was crazy. I think it was around New Year's. He was trying to hype us up for New
New Year's
Year's resolution.
resolutions.
Yeah, we should be really fit and not gluttonous. So I bring my sister. And at this point, I'm like, I want to get her involved in church. I'm wanting to make this seem like a very cool thing. And he starts talking about how women deserve cervical cancer. And it is a natural consequence of women sleeping around.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, well, sin, the garden, and that's how sin entered the world. And unfortunately, cervical cancer is just a consequence of sin.
That's so crazy.
And we almost walked out. We should have. In hindsight, we 100% should have. We were kind of sitting towards the back, and all of a sudden, our knees are bobbing because we're so mad. We're just like
Aw.
bobbing our knees up and down, and we're looking at each other. We're huffing and puffing. And I was so humiliated that I brought my sister here, thinking that this was a safe place. And um, it's just such bullshit, too, because I know of people in my life who have struggled with scares from that. And
Mhm.
it's because their partners cheated on them.
Yep. Thank you.
Or, yeah, their husband, who they were a virgin when they got together. You know,
Mhm.
it's so disgusting. How dare you act
Yeah.
as if you deserve that illness just because you assume that means that they're a loose woman or something like that. And yeah, that is my crazy story about victim blaming in the church, because it is unfortunately so freaking common.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. Also, I mean, I don't have to say this, but you having multiple sexual partners also doesn't mean that you deserve cancer.
Absolutely. I'm like, empathy where? Or just caring where? You shouldn't be hoping that anybody gets cancer or feeling like,
Yeah.
oh, they got what was coming to them.
Yeah. I,
No.
I always got a kind of a weird vibe from that guy. And I know this isn't like anywhere near that insane of a story. I wasn't there for that sermon, but I was interested in joining their like praise and worship team. And I started talking to the leader of the praise and worship team, who was the pastor's brother. And when I told him I was interested, he was like, "Yeah, well, you'll come for the audition, and then after that, you'll have a trial period where we will observe you." And I was like, "Okay, what are you observing?" And he was like, "You personally, to see if your culture and like your values align with the culture of our church, and if you would fit in with our ministry team." And the way he said it was like, "This is a club, and like we're gonna see if we like you enough to like
Yeah.
be here." And I could just feel it. I was like, "Wait,
And if you're
you're
holy
just."
enough.
Yes. Like we will observe you for 90 days. Are you going to come with me? Like, are you going to come with me? You're going to come with
What,
me to
this is
work?
like the big leagues? It's like American Idol.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, no, I'm not. I just feel weird about churches that are that exclusive. That just felt weird to me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Totally.
crazy. Okay. I'll read next. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I went to my grandpa's funeral at our church when I was 11. The pastor had said during the funeral that since my grandpa stopped coming to church when he got put on hospice, he was going to hell.
Oh my God, that's not funny. I'm only laughing because I'm so uncomfortable. I'm one of those people who people will tell me the worst news and I start laughing. Oh, that makes me so mad. Can you imagine
He didn't
sitting
have enough
at a
faith.
funeral? Yeah, when you are in this obviously horrible position of just trying to mourn your loved one. I mean, Bran and I, we've had five of our grandparents pass away in the last like
Wow.
3 or 4 years. I cannot fathom attending a
Mm-mm.
service where the pastor would dare say something like that. Like, how insensitive are you? What a horrible thing to say. And then also, I guarantee you there's children there
Yeah. Well,
who are
yeah,
going to,
this person said they were 11 years old at the funeral.
oh my gosh, I missed that. That's
Yes.
terrible. Like, why? What is the point? Altar call? Or don't be like your grandpa?
Don't get so sick that you can't come to church.
Ew. It's
Yeah, that's crazy.
disgusting.
Honestly, these types of comments, like you think about them or these messages, you think about them and you're like, there's no way that this is real, but you know it's real. And there's so many of them exactly like this one. It sounds outrageous, but this shit happens.
I'm going to be honest. I've read comments, probably 6 or 7, that are almost that exact thing before.
Yeah.
And that's when you know it's real. When I get it from so many
Yeah.
people. And then even when I put it in videos, people will be like, oh my gosh, me too. Yeah, same thing.
Same
And
thing.
it's funny because I don't want to diminish what we've been through because, man, we've
Oh,
been through
yeah.
our own very specific type of trauma. But it really does make me think, oh, wow, there,
There are people who have gone
that's a
through it.
lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. We've all
There
gone
are
through it
levels.
just in different sectors and levels for sure.
Definitely yes. Okay, I will read this one. It'll be our last one. Maybe we'll do this again if we do another religious episode, because there are tons and we got so many submissions as well. Okay, so this one says, I once had a pastor tell me it would be sin/useless for me to get married since I can't have kids.
Oh my God. No, I'm
What?
so mad. That's insanity. What a horrible thing to say to somebody.
You know what?
Wow, I'm
I'm
so
racking my
mad.
brain. Yeah, I'm racking my brain because I feel like I don't think this is someone I've spoken to, but maybe like okay, the way it's coming back to my brain is I watched maybe a TikTok of a podcast clipping, right? And someone was basically saying this. It was some guy. He was probably 19 years old. He had just gotten
I'm sure
married
he
to
was.
his wife. Yeah. And they were talking about sex and the purpose of sex and how it's, strictly for procreation. And the guy that was interviewing them on the podcast didn't agree with them at all. Like, he brings people on to have controversial conversations, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't listen to the podcast. This is just what I'm remembering off the top. And he asked a question very similar to this, where he was like, so if you can't, like, if you find out, since y'all were virgins and you end up finding out that you can't have children or something happens, are you guys going to stop having sex? Do you feel like then your sexual intimacy isn't honoring to God within your marriage, if that's the case? Because they were talking about it in this light. And you could tell that the kid was like, for a second, there was a half a second where he was kind of like, what do I say to that? And he had the audacity and he was just like, yeah, I do think that. That's what I think.
Wow.
If that were to happen, then that's what I think. Okay.
That's horrible.
It's crazy, but it's crazy that people
insanity.
actually believe that.
Yeah. Well, what makes me so mad about this one too is that they're basically saying that her entire worth is to give birth.
Yep.
So there's no point. And what a horrible, demeaning, awful thing to say to somebody. And I feel like it's that lack of care or empathy or understanding, humanity. Honestly,
Oh, yeah.
it just blows my mind. I don't
It's
understand it.
patriarchal and it's archaic. I mean, it reminds me of all of these
Yes.
shows that I watch that I love so much, these period pieces from like the 1700s, where it's like the woman, is defiled if she gets raped, and then she's like, no longer
Horrible.
worthy of a husband. And it's like, this is literally what this is. It's absolutely insane. It's so disgusting.
And it's weird that people like this exist because
They
you
do.
feel like they don't. Oh my gosh, I have to share this.
Okay.
I'm sure some people saw it because I posted it yesterday. But did you see my demonic tampon video?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
You posted it yesterday?
yes. So
Okay.
there was this man on TikTok saying, God, we just call out demonic tampons right now in the name of Jesus, and we call them up and out, which what does he mean? Up and out?
Wait, I just peed a little bit. I cannot.
Up and out. And I'm like, what do you mean up and out? And he said,
the visual of this is insane. Okay.
my jaw was on the floor. And guys, if you ever see stuff like this, please tag me, please.
Yes.
This is
Also, me as well. Like, me as well. I want to see
Yes.
this stuff and I would love to respond to
Tag
them
us.
as well.
Yeah, so I got tagged in it a few times and immediately I'm like, there's no way. And at first I started to think, okay, maybe he thinks the tampons are demonic because they take your virginity. Maybe he's one of those people because some women are told that. But as he continued to go on, he said, please give us the wisdom to know which tampons are demonic and which ones aren't. So I'm like, which ones are?
How do you know?
So I made a video being like, I always felt like the cardboard ones felt evil.
Those are the demonic ones for sure.
If I had to pick, it would be those, but I was like, let's try to figure out which ones are demonic because apparently some, but not all tampons. And
But wait, he doesn't explain? Like, we don't actually, like,
No.
he doesn't. That frustrates me. I want to know.
But when I saw all of this to say, we're talking about these crazy comments and the fact that these people actually exist, because I saw it and I thought, okay, this has to be satire. This can't be real. So I go to his page. No, this is real. This is his stuff. And it was a 2-minute long video of him praying about demonic tampons in a passionate voice. So actually, what I should do, yeah, right. I should go to his page and look at some more of his videos because sometimes whenever I find very funny, interesting creators, I like to scroll their pages and I'm like, what other videos can I make? You got some interesting
you got
stuff
some good
going on
stuff.
here.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
What a way to end this religious trauma episode.
Yes.
Demonic tampons.
Gosh.
If you know what they are, please let us know. I'm dying to know which ones are demonic. I must know, actually.
Yes, we must.
My bets are on the Tampax cardboard.
For sure. So We did want to let you guys know this episode is going to be dropped on the Healedish feed, so maybe that is where you're listening to it now. But if you are on Overshare and you're listening to it there, just know that Kenzie did 2 episodes on Healedish where she shared her crazy story of IHOP and how they prayed over her belly that her baby would be a martyr. And I wish I was kidding. It is atrocious and such an insane story. And we also go kind of more into our history together and how we met. So definitely listen to it, go over, listen to it. And we also wanted to let you guys know that we have a Patreon. Do you want to tell them about our Patreon?
Yes. And I also wanted to say that on Healedish, like for the first time ever, actually said out loud for the public where I stand with my beliefs now. So if you're interested, anyone who's listening to this and you are interested, I know that we don't always share like where we're at, but I did end up going into that pretty much entirely on that episode. So if you're interested in that, it's there. And yes, Patreon. So we do an episode a month on our Patreon where we do extra stories. So submissions that we love, we'll just like release and some extra submissions. We also have a little series where we do Reddit stories. So we pick like super juicy Reddits that we love and give our hot takes. And those are super fun too. So if you're interested, head over to our Patreon. We would love it. And also like, share, send this to a friend if you love it. Please leave a review, but not a bad one. If you have something bad to say, send it to us in our DMs. We will read them, but just like do us a solid. Not in public. Not in public.
I know. When I got my first bad review on Healedish, I was so upset. But hey, right now we're 5 out of 5 on everything.
There you go.
So yeah, don't leave any negative reviews. I feel like we have a great little community. I really feel like it's building. People have been so kind and been saying how much they like the podcast. So thank you guys so much for sticking around, and we will continue to put out a bunch of content for you guys to listen to.
And if you have ideas or requests for other themed episodes, like we did religious trauma. What was the last one we did?
Betrayal.
Yeah. If you like the themed thing and you want to see like a different theme, send those in. Send us a DM on Overshare Hour, and we will definitely take those into consideration for future themed episodes.
Yeah, that's great. We should put it on our stories.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
What they want.
So I guess that's it for this episode of the Overshare Hour, and we are so excited to see you guys here again next week. Episodes drop every Wednesday, 5 a.m. Don't be late. We love you. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.